Today, fellas, we are reviewing the fusion rifle Elatha. Am I saying that right? Elatha FR4. This is actually a year one fusion rifle. Some of you will probably remember it. Very similar to Erentil. Now, it falls in the same archetype, which is that high impact frame, slow firing, and high damage. The weapon is also more accurate when stationary and aiming down sights. Now, we just recently talked about weapons in the game that are broken, and I just had to get it off my chest because now that I've publicly come out and condemn certain weapons and exotics in the game, I feel no guilt when I use these loadouts. This last word fusion rifle combo together, no shame. And it's been a long time since I reviewed a high-impact fusion. But the questions we want to answer today is, can Elatha beat out fusion rifles like Wizened Rebuke? And more notably, can it beat out fusion rifles like Erentil? And to a certain extent, I would say like Erentil is even better than Wizened Rebuke due to its stats, the scopes that you can get on it, as well as just the overall aesthetic of the weapon. To me, like I said in the last video, it's just much cleaner. Elatha has that clean look as well. But does it maintain the consistency that Erentil has? Now, first up, the scope on this weapon is the Flash HS5 scope. This, of course, is a medium zoom scope. It also highlights enemy targets, gives you a bump there in range, as well as handling speed. For our battery perks, we actually have two that I was actually going between both. Particle Repeater, which increases our stability, and Projection Fuse, which increases our range. You see, back in Destiny 1, I would say Particle Repeater, something that boosts that stability. And I would argue and say stability was more important back then because fusion rifles were not hit scan. In D2 though, they are hit scan outside of Telesto, which is why stability is not as important. So for the most part, especially on a high impact fusion, we're gonna opt for extra range. Now our trait here, firmly planted, increase accuracy, stability, and handling while firing while crouch. This is a trait that just constantly resurfaces on many weapons. Very good on things like sniper rifles. I actually think for my controller players, firmly planted is one of the best perks to go with. Now the final trait is what allows this fusion rifle and many other high impact fusions to be one of the best shotgun counters in the game, and that is of course Backup Plan. Grants reduced charge time and increased handling speed for a short time immediately after swapping to this weapon. Now the charge time on this fusion rifle archetype is 860, which is 860 milliseconds, which means to actually charge this fusion rifle up, not counting the swap, it normally takes 0.86 seconds. Now 0.86 seconds, unless you're pre-charging around a corner, is pretty long to actually just be standing there taking incoming fire. Plus, flinch plays a role there, so 9 times out of 10, if you do not pre-charge with your fusion rifle, you'll most likely lose that duel. Now consoles a little differently. I would say 0.8 seconds is something easily achievable in most PvP games in terms of just a base average time to kill value. Not so much on consoles, which is why I think fusion rifles have become more of an issue, specifically something like Erentil. But Backup Plan, when thrown into the mix, throws that 860 charge time out the window, allowing this high impact fusion and many other high impact fusions to kill in 0.38 seconds. Give or take a few things, we'll be gracious here and say that most high impact fusion rifles with the trait Backup Plan can kill you pretty easily in 0.4 seconds. Now this is obviously disgusting when handling shotgun rushers, but it's also disgusting when handling any situation. There's not many situations that a high impact fusion rifle with something like Backup Plan can't handle. Now I chose this role specifically on this fusion because I wanted to know what would it be like to slide into an engagement, be crouching, get that increase in handling speed due to a combination of things. Number one, our scope there increases handling, and number two, firmly planted. Going for the quick swap should be a little snappier and much more fluid. And then on top of that, the consistency of the fusion rifle to begin with. You've seen the insane kill ranges of Erentil. Can Elatha reach those ranges? So my experience with Elatha so far, and I actually played with a God Roll Backup Plan Erentil here recently for our broken weapons video, I would say Elatha is good. It's also got access to a number of roles here that also makes it unique, but there's nothing here that is committing itself to one side of the spectrum or the other. As in, something like Backup Plan combined with say something like Under Pressure is a fantastic perk combination, especially in Crucible. Considering you normally always have only 2 rounds of fusion, you will be proccing things like Under Pressure at all times, which is a fantastic perk on a fusion rifle. Also, in most situations, especially these high impact fusions, even though this one does have a bump there in handling, it's still one of the slowest handling weapons in the game, thus resulting in things feeling a little slow, awkward, and your shot being off because you're trying to compensate for the lack in draw time. Now, there was actually 2 ways to handle that. Under pressure granted that ginormous bump there in accuracy that even if you did get the shot off from the hip, 9 times out of 10, it landed with something like Erentil. Elatha, however, does not roll with something like under pressure, thus opening up 2 options. You could take the quick draw route, which is what I would recommend, especially if you're combining something like that with backup plan. You'll get that immediate draw time, which will allow you to be staring at your enemy and killing them in that crispy 0.4 seconds. Now, the other part was one I used to use on main ingredient, Hipfire Grip with backup plan, and I actually pseudo stacked it with a freehand mod. This actually gave it like bonus hipfire accuracy, and I found myself at times just absolutely melting when shooting from the hip. However, this is a high impact fusion, and even though it's going to kill in 0.4 seconds, a lot of times people use these high impact fusions to map at crazy ranges. So aiming down sights is not necessary, but it definitely makes it a lot easier, which the moment you do that, you're no longer taking advantage of Hipfire Grip. There is one added benefit to Hipfire Grip, is that the time period that it takes you to aim down sights, there is speculation that Hipfire Grip still activates at that moment, thus resulting in maintained accuracy as you're aiming down sights. And for something like backup plan, 9 times out of 10, considering that charge time is so fast, the shot will be fired during the process of aiming down sights. Unless, of course, you got something like quick draw. I would just play it safe though, guys, and just go quick draw and backup plan. Now, the Crucible recommended roll right here is actually no distraction and snapshot. As interesting as that may be, and I have not used no distraction on this fusion, I will say that this fusion rifle does not handle flinch well. And that's like a huge thing that gives Erentil such a leg up. And even something like Wizened Rebuke, those fusions to me handle flinch pretty well. Elatha, for some reason, when taking incoming fire, you can still visibly see your target and get the shot off, but your bolts will spread all over the place, normally resulting in maybe 1 or 2 bolts even landing, which won't get you the kill. And even though this is a high impact fusion, in order to lock down a kill, you want to land at least 4 bolts for that 48 damage per bolt. Overall, guys, I think Elatha is a good fusion. It is a roll drop though, so it's not necessarily something easy to farm for. And considering that people can just farm Menagerie for a God roll Erentil, or if you like myself, I have so many just good rolled Wizened Rebukes, I just can't see myself using something like Elatha. And even after playing with what we would consider a God roll to be on this fusion, it just doesn't hold up in terms of consistency. Erentil has ranges on it though that I can't even explain. Sometimes when you kill people in like, I don't know, 40, 50 meters, you don't even see the damage numbers pop up. They just die, which it can't be a bug, or at least I don't think it is, as it hasn't ever been corrected. Hell, these fusion rifles have been doing the same thing since year 1 of Destiny 2. But in terms of like the hierarchy of fusions, I would put Elatha up there, close to Wizened Rebuke, but Erentil is definitely still the king of all high impact fusions. Well, fellas, that is our review for Elatha. I don't really have a PvE side of things, as I really don't use high impact fusions inside of PvE. I guess you can use this. It does have some interesting things like surrounded, field prep. So if you want to use this fusion rifle inside of PvE, by all means, give it a go. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.